When God sets his eyes on a woman he intends to use, the journey she walks is rarely easy. The breaking begins not as punishment, but as preparation. He allows her to go through seasons where the weight feels unbearable, where prayers seem unanswered, and where silence feels louder than any promise. In those moments, she wonders if she's been forgotten, but in reality she's being refined. God breaks her pride so she can stand in humility. He breaks her reliance on people so she can rely on him fully. He breaks her plans so she can surrender to his greater purpose. Every tear, every disappointment, every closed door is not wasted. It's part of the molding process. The woman God wants to use often feels like she's walking alone. She may be misunderstood, rejected, or even betrayed by those she thought she could trust. But it's in that breaking where she learns that her true strength does not come from her own willpower. It comes from the one who designed her. The crushing seasons produce oil. The pressing seasons release power, and the wilderness seasons build faith that no storm can shake. A woman who has been broken by God and rebuilt by his hand carries an authority, a depth, and a wisdom that can't be faked or taught in any classroom. She becomes dangerous to the enemy because she knows what it's like to fall apart and be put back together by grace. She knows what it's like to have nothing, but still believe in everything God promised. She knows the cost of obedience and the value of surrender. When God breaks a woman, he is not destroying her. He is shaping her into a vessel strong enough to carry the calling he has placed on her life. What once felt like loss becomes testimony. What once felt like rejection becomes redirection. What once felt like pain becomes purpose. And when she finally steps into what God has called her to do, she realizes the breaking was never to harm her. It was always to build her into someone who could handle the blessing, the influence, and the responsibility of being used by God. When God has a plan for a woman, it is never small. He doesn't call her to settle in mediocrity or to be comfortable in the shallow end. He calls her into the deep waters, into places that require courage, faith, and strength. But before she can carry the weight of what he has for her, he breaks her. Not to destroy her, not to weaken her, but to rebuild her into someone he can trust with influence, someone he can trust with power, someone he can trust with lives that will be touched through her obedience. Breaking is painful. Breaking feels unfair. Breaking feels lonely. Yet it is in the breaking where God does his deepest work. A woman may cry out, "Why me, Lord? Why this pain? Why this season of silence? Why does it feel like everything is being stripped away?" But it's in that place where God whispers, "Because I am preparing you. I am pulling out of you what cannot stay. I am cutting away what will hold you back. I am removing every false foundation so I can build you on the rock that cannot be moved." When God breaks a woman, he doesn't start with the easy things. He starts with the things she holds on to the tightest. He may touch her relationships, forcing her to see who truly belongs in her life and who cannot walk with her into her destiny. He may touch her plans, dismantling the vision she had carefully built for herself, because his vision is higher. He may even touch her sense of identity, allowing seasons where she no longer feels like the woman she once was, so that she can discover who she truly is in him. It is not that God delights in seeing her suffer. It is that he knows there is no resurrection without death. There is no oil without crushing. There is no testimony without a test. So he allows her to walk through valleys that feel endless, nights that seem longer than days, and prayers that echo back with silence. In those moments, she wonders if she is forgotten. But the truth is, she is hidden in his hand, hidden in his process, hidden until the right time when the world is ready to see the woman he has formed in secret. The woman God breaks learns a different kind of strength. It is not the strength of pretending everything is fine. It is not the strength of carrying everything on her shoulders. It is the strength of surrender, the strength of knowing when to fall at his feet, the strength of admitting her weakness so that his power can rest upon her. This kind of strength cannot be taught in books. It cannot be inherited by family. It can only be developed in the furnace of affliction. She may have prayed for God to use her, never realizing that the prayer for God's use is also a prayer for God's breaking. Because God cannot pour new wine into old wineskins. He cannot place new callings into old mindsets. He cannot entrust great influence to a heart that has not been purified. And so the breaking is the evidence that God has answered her prayer. In the process, she learns humility. She discovers that it is not about her name being known, but about his name being glorified. She learns dependence, finding out that her strength, her connections, her talent, her beauty, and her intelligence are not enough. Only a spirit working through her will sustain her. She learns patience, waiting on his timing rather than forcing doors to open. Because when she tries to push her way forward, she finds disappointment. But when God opens the door, no man can shut it. The woman God breaks often faces rejection. Rejection from friends, rejection from family, rejection from opportunities she thought were meant for her. But rejection in the kingdom is redirection. God uses rejection as a shield. He closes the doors that would harm her. He removes the people who cannot handle her future. He blocks the paths that would lead her to destruction. What feels like rejection is really protection, and what feels like loss is really positioning. She also faces betrayal. People she trusted may turn their backs on her. People she confided in may speak against her. People she served may not show loyalty in return. These betrayals cut deep, but even they are part of the breaking. For in betrayal, she learns to lean not on man, but on God. She learns to guard her heart while still keeping it soft enough to love. She learns that true validation can only come from the one who created her, not from the applause of people who may change their minds tomorrow. In her wilderness seasons, she often feels unseen. No spotlight, no platform, no recognition. She may be serving in hidden places, giving her best where nobody claps, pouring out her heart where nobody notices. Yet it is in those hidden places that God shapes her character. It is in obscurity that he builds the foundation of integrity so that when the spotlight does come, she will not crumble under the weight of it. Obscurity is not punishment, it is preparation. And in her breaking, she begins to discover treasures within herself that she never knew were there. She finds a voice she didn't know she had. She finds resilience she never thought she could carry. She finds wisdom that only comes from pain turned into purpose. She finds faith that is not shallow, but rooted deep like a tree planted by rivers of water. Her prayers shift from asking God to take away the pain to asking him to give her strength in the middle of it. Her worship deepens because she is no longer praising God only for what he does, but for who he is. The woman God breaks carries scars, but those scars are not shameful. They are evidence. Evidence of where she has been, evidence of what she has survived, evidence of a God who never left her side. Every scar tells a story of grace, a story of redemption, a story of beauty rising from ashes. And when she speaks, her voice carries weight because it is not theory, it is testimony. When she stands before others, she doesn't just inspire with her words, she imparts strength with her presence. Because she has walked through the fire and survived, her very existence becomes a prophecy to those still in the flames. If God did it for her, he will do it for you. She becomes a living, breathing example that brokenness is not the end, it is the beginning of transformation. The enemy fears a woman who has been broken by God because she can no longer be easily deceived. She knows the cost of compromise. She knows the sting of disappointment. She knows the emptiness of casing the world. She cannot be lured away by superficial things because she has tasted the depth of God's presence. She cannot be silenced by intimidation because she has already endured worse and found her voice on the other side. And the beauty of this process is that she emerges more powerful, not because she gained more, but because she lost what was holding her back. She lost pride, she lost fear, she lost the need for approval, she lost the chains of comparison. And in losing, she gained everything that truly matters. The woman God breaks is not ordinary. She carries an anointing that flows from her pain. She carries wisdom that flows from her scars. She carries authority that flows from her obedience. Wherever she goes, she shifts atmospheres, not by trying to impress people, but by being fully herself, fully surrendered, fully yielded to the God who rebuilt her. And when people look at her, they may not see the breaking she went through. They may only see the strength, the confidence, the grace. But she knows the cost. She knows the night she cried herself to sleep. She knows the prayers she thought went unanswered. She knows the days she almost gave up. And because she knows the cost, she never takes the calling lightly. God breaks the woman he wants to use because he loves her too much to let her walk into her destiny unprepared. He loves her too much to let her carry the weight of influence without the character to sustain it. He loves her too much to let her settle for less than the fullness of his plan. And though she may not understand it in the moment, she will one day look back and see that every breaking was really a blessing in disguise. When a woman asks God to use her, she rarely imagines the cost. She envisions the impact, the influence, the fruit of obedience. She imagines speaking into lives, leading with power, walking in authority. But what she doesn't see at first is the crushing. She doesn't see the nights where she feels forgotten. She doesn't see the pruning seasons where God cuts away what she thought she needed. She doesn't see the waiting seasons where time feels wasted, but in reality, every second is shaping her. God knows that a woman who has not been broken will trust in her own strength. She will lean on her own wisdom. She will fight battles with her own weapons. But when she has been broken, she no longer depends on herself. She learns that without God, she is nothing, and with him, she is everything. That's why the breaking is necessary. It shifts her from independence into complete dependence. The woman God breaks goes through tests that others may never understand. Sometimes she feels like her prayers fall flat, like her faith is being stretched further than it can bear. But God is not ignoring her, he is deepening her. Every delay is intentional. Every silence is purposeful. Every unanswered prayer is shaping her trust. Because when God finally answers, it won't be in a small way. It will be in a way that shows his power, not hers. Her faith stops being shallow. It is no longer the faith that only believes when everything is easy. It becomes the faith that stands when everything is hard. It becomes the faith that says, even if he doesn't answer the way I want, I will still trust him. That kind of faith only comes through breaking. There are moments in her journey where she feels stripped of everything familiar. Friendships she thought would last forever disappear. Opportunities she thought were guaranteed crumble. The version of herself she once loved no longer fits. It's like God takes away every crutch, every false sense of security, until she has nothing left to lean on but him. And though that feels terrifying, it's the safest place she will ever be. Because when she has nothing but God, she discovers that he is enough. This woman, the one God has chosen, begins to see life differently. She no longer measures success by the standards of the world. She doesn't chase validation like applause or recognition. She measures success by obedience. If God told her to do it and she did it, that's success. If God told her to stay and she stayed, that's success. If God told her to let go and she let go, that's success. That shift in perspective only comes through breaking. When God breaks a woman, he is teaching her how to fight spiritual battles. She learns that the fight is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. She learns that prayer is her weapon. That worship is her refuge. That faith is her shield. And when she comes out of that breaking, she is no longer passive in the face of adversity. She knows how to stand. She knows how to fight. She knows how to take authority in the spirit because she has had to do it in her private life long before anyone ever saw her public victory. She also learns compassion. A woman who has never been broken cannot fully relate to the pain of others. But when she has walked through her own valleys, she can sit with someone else in theirs. She can comfort the brokenhearted because she has been brokenhearted. She can encourage the weary because she has been weary. She can speak life into the hopeless because she remembers what it feels like to have no hope. Her breaking becomes someone else's healing. There is something powerful about a woman who has been broken and rebuilt by God. She no longer seeks to prove herself. She no longer tries to force her way forward. She no longer wastes energy on things that don't matter. She has a quiet confidence, a stillness, a peace that flows from knowing she is exactly where God wants her to be. That kind of woman cannot be shaken by gossip, cannot be shaken by rejection, cannot be shaken by fear. She has been through too much to go back now. And when the time is right, when the breaking has done its work, God begins to open doors. Not doors she forced, but doors he ordained. Not connections she manipulated, but connections he divinely orchestrated. Not positions she fought for, but positions that were waiting for her all along. And because she has been broken, she steps into those places with humility, not arrogance. She carries the weight of the calling with gratitude, not entitlement. Others may look at her and think she just appeared out of nowhere, but she knows the years it took, the tears it cost, the nights of wondering if she would make it. She knows the crushing it required, the faith it demanded, the patience it tested. And that is why she never takes the blessing lightly, because she understands that without the breaking, she wouldn't even be here. The woman God breaks is not flashy. She doesn't have to shout to be heard. She doesn't have to fight for attention. Her presence carries weight because she has been refined by fire. When she speaks, people listen, not because her voice is the loudest, but because her words carry truth. And truth carries power. The enemy trembles at this kind of woman, not because she is perfect, but because she is surrendered. Not because she has never failed, but because she has learned how to rise after failure. Not because she is the strongest, but because she knows where her strength comes from. A broken woman in God's hands is more dangerous than anything the enemy can imagine because she cannot be easily distracted, cannot be easily deceived, cannot be easily destroyed. This is why the breaking is worth it. This is why the pain is never wasted, because every time she was broken, she was also built. Every time she was stripped, she was also strengthened. Every time she was pressed down, she was also being prepared. And now she stands not as who she used to be, but as who God always knew she could be. Her story becomes a light for others. Her journey becomes a roadmap. Her scars become a message that says, you will make it. God is not finished with you. This breaking is not the end. It is the beginning. And because she has lived it, people believe her. Because they see in her eyes that she has walked through fire and survived, they know that survival is possible for them too. This woman is not the same as she once was. The breaking changed her. The breaking made her. The breaking equipped her. And though she would not have chosen it, she is grateful for it. Because now she carries something greater than success. She carries substance. She carries power. She carries God's presence in a way that only comes through surrender. When a woman walks through God's breaking, something changes in her eyes. People may not be able to explain it, but they can see it. There's a depth that wasn't there before, a wisdom that can't be manufactured, a strength that speaks even when she's silent. She has looked at the storm and survived it. She has walked through the valley and come out with life still in her lungs. She knows the weight of pain, but she also knows the power of resurrection. Her life no longer fits into shallow conversations. She can't gossip and call it friendship. She can't settle for surface-level faith. She can't pretend that everything is fine when it's not. She has been broken too deeply to play small. She has encountered God in the crushing, and now her very existence demands more. She's not trying to be impressive. She's not trying to be popular. She's just trying to be obedient. The breaking has given her discernment. She sees through things she used to fall for. She recognizes when something looks good but isn't God. She no longer chases temporary satisfaction because she knows the emptiness it brings. Instead, she waits, she listens, she follows the still small voice that once felt faint but now feels louder than everything else. When she loves differently. The breaking has made her tender. She doesn't take relationships for granted anymore. She values loyalty, she values trust, she values authenticity. She has no room for pretense. She has no space for half-hearted connections. She understands that love is not about convenience, but about commitment. And she gives from a place of depth, because she remembers the days when she needed someone to pour into her and no one was there. Her prayers also change. Before the breaking, she might have prayed for blessings, for opportunities, for recognition. After the breaking, her prayers sound more like, Lord, keep me in your will. Lord, give me wisdom. Lord, use my life for your glory. Her prayers shift from asking for comfort to asking for character. She doesn't just want what looks good, she wants what comes from God. That shift in prayer is the evidence that the breaking has done its work. And then there is her worship. Oh, how her worship changes. Before, she may have worshipped out of routine, out of tradition, out of habit. But now her worship comes from the depths of her soul. Now she lifts her hands, not because life is easy, but because she knows God is worthy even when life is hard. Now her tears in worship aren't from sorrow alone, but from gratitude, from awe, from remembering how God carried her through what she thought would kill her. Her worship is weighty because it's honest, it's real, it's raw. The woman God breaks also discovers the power of stillness. She doesn't have to rush anymore. She doesn't have to strive. She doesn't have to prove herself to anyone. She can sit in silence and know that God is at work. She can rest in the waiting and know that God is still writing her story. The breaking teaches her patience, not the kind that grits teeth and waits angrily, but the kind that trusts with peace, the kind that says, even if it takes longer than I thought, I still believe. Her calling doesn't intimidate her anymore. Before, she might have doubted if she was capable. She might have compared herself to others. She might have wondered if she had what it takes. But the breaking stripped away comparison. The breaking silenced doubt. The breaking reminded her that it was never about her strength in the first place. It was always about God's. So now she steps into her calling with boldness, not because she thinks she is enough, but because she knows God is more than enough. People may question her. People may doubt her. People may misunderstand her. But she is no longer shaken by the opinions of others. She knows that obedience often looks foolish to those who don't understand it. She knows that faith often looks reckless to those who never had to walk by it. But she has decided that she would rather look foolish in obedience to God than look wise in the eyes of man and miss his will. And that kind of resolve only comes from breaking. Because once you've been broken by God, you no longer fear being broken by people. Once you've been rejected by those you trusted and survived, you no longer fear rejection. Once you've walked through the fire and discovered you weren't alone, you no longer fear the flames. Breaking builds a courage that cannot be faked. There is something unexplainable about a woman who has been broken and rebuilt. She carries peace even in chaos. She carries hope even in despair. She carries light even in the darkest places. People wonder how she does it, how she keeps standing, how she keeps believing. But the truth is, she doesn't stand in her own strength. She stands because God holds her up. She doesn't shine from her own light. She reflects the light of the one who lives inside her. This woman, the one God has broken to use, becomes a safe place for others. People find rest in her presence because she carries peace. People find courage in her words because they carry truth. People find comfort in her story because it reminds them they are not alone. Her life becomes a ministry without her even trying, because what she carries cannot be hidden. And when she finally looks back, when she reflects on all she's been through, she sees the fingerprints of God all over it. She realizes that the times she thought she was abandoned were the times he was closest. She realizes that the tears she cried in loneliness were the seeds of the strength she now carries. She realizes that what felt like breaking was actually building. The woman who has been broken by God begins to walk differently. Not in arrogance, but in assurance. She doesn't rush into rooms to prove she belongs there. She walks in knowing that if God sent her, the room needs her. She doesn't bow to fear or intimidation because she's already faced worse battles in the private places of her life and survived them. Her confidence is not loud, but it is unshakable because it's built on the foundation of God's promises. She also learns the value of boundaries. Before the breaking, she may have said yes to everything, stretching herself thin, trying to please everyone. But through the breaking, she realizes that her yes is valuable, her time is sacred, her energy is not limitless. She understands that not every opportunity is from God, and not every open door is meant for her to walk through. Now she listens for the Spirit's prompting before she commits, because she has learned that obedience is more important than business. There's also a boldness that emerges in her. The same woman who once questioned herself now speaks with clarity and authority. Not because she thinks she has all the answers, but because she knows who gave her the words. She doesn't shrink back from the assignment because she has learned that the safest place to be is in the middle of God's will, even if it feels uncomfortable. Her yes carries weight now because it has been tested. The breaking also taught her how to forgive. She had to forgive the people who hurt her, even when they never apologized. She had to forgive those who walked away, those who misunderstood, those who betrayed her. At first, forgiveness felt impossible, but she realized holding on to bitterness only chained her to the past. Through breaking, God softened her heart to release it, not because they deserved it, but because she needed the freedom. And in that release, she discovered that forgiveness wasn't about excusing the pain. It was about reclaiming her peace. The woman God breaks also learns to carry joy differently. Before, joy may have depended on circumstances. Good days brought happiness, hard days brought despair. But after breaking, her joy is rooted deeper. It's not tied to what's happening around her, but to who is within her. Even in the middle of storms, she finds a reason to rejoice because she knows storms don't last forever and God is faithful through every season. Her laughter now carries healing because it comes from a place that has known sorrow and overcome it. And then there is her resilience. Nothing about her story was easy. She has had to climb mountains, fight battles, and walk through valleys most people never saw. Yet she stands. She stands not because life has been gentle with her, but because God has been gracious to her. She carries a resilience that says, I may bend, but I will not break. I may fall, but I will not stay down. I may cry, but I will still rise. That resilience is magnetic. It draws others to her because they can see that her strength is real, not manufactured. People may wonder how she continues after so many setbacks. The answer is simple. She learned that setbacks are setups. Every time she thought it was over, God was redirecting her. Every time a door closed, he was guiding her to the right one. Every time she lost something, he replaced it with something better. She stopped seeing disappointment as the end and started seeing it as part of the journey. That mindset only came because of breaking. Through her journey, she discovered that God's breaking is not about taking something from her, but about placing something inside of her. He placed resilience, faith, wisdom, compassion, authority, discernment, and humility. These treasures would never have been birthed without the breaking. They were locked inside of her, waiting for the pressure, the pressing, the refining fire to bring them out. And now, everywhere she goes, she carries influence that is undeniable. Not influence that comes from titles or platforms, but influence that flows from authenticity. When she speaks, her words land differently because they're rooted in experience. When she encourages someone, they feel seen because she has walked where they walk. When she prays, heaven responds because her prayers are not empty. They are filled with the fire of a woman who knows how to wrestle with God and not let go until the blessing comes. She is not perfect. She is not without flaws. But that's what makes her testimony even more powerful. She doesn't stand as a woman who never struggled. She stands as a woman who struggled and survived. She doesn't speak as someone who had it all figured out. She speaks as someone who was broken, rebuilt, and redeemed. Her imperfections don't disqualify her. They magnify the grace of the one who chose her despite them. The woman God breaks is proof that pain can be purposeful. She is evidence that nothing is wasted in God's hands. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every failure, every season of waiting, it all worked together to shape her into the woman she is today. And because she's lived it, she can stand before others and declare with certainty that God's breaking is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of something greater. What makes this kind of woman so powerful is not that life has been easy for her, but that she has learned how to carry life even when it's heavy. She doesn't deny the weight. She doesn't pretend the pain isn't real. But she has discovered that she can hand the weight to God, and in exchange, he gives her peace. She has learned that her tears are not weakness. They are prayers in liquid form. And that every tear she cried in the breaking became a seed for the harvest she now walks in. She is not easily impressed by the temporary shine of this world. Money doesn't move her. Status doesn't shake her. Applause doesn't define her. She has been broken in places where none of that could help her. And so she values what truly matters: God's presence, his voice, his hand on her life. She has seen too much of his goodness to trade it for the shallow approval of people. When she speaks, she doesn't waste words. She doesn't fill the air with empty promises or shallow cliches. She speaks truth, sometimes hard truth, but truth that sets people free. Her words carry the weight of someone who has walked through fire, and fire has a way of burning away the unnecessary. Her speech is seasoned with grace, but it is also sharpened with conviction. People don't just hear her, they feel her. She walks with a quiet authority, not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that carries an undeniable presence. When she enters a room, people may not know her story, but they sense the oil on her life. Oil that came from crushing, oil that came from pressing, oil that came from breaking. That oil cannot be faked, and it cannot be bought. It is produced only in the hidden places with God. Her gratitude runs deep. The woman God breaks doesn't take small things for granted anymore. She knows the value of a new day. She knows the power of peace of mind. She knows the beauty of true friends, of quiet moments, of answered prayers that others may overlook. Gratitude flows out of her because she has lived without, and now every blessing feels sacred. Her humility also becomes evident. Breaking stripped her of pride. It reminded her that she is not the source of her own success, that she is not the author of her own story. Every good thing she carries is evidence of grace, and she knows it. She doesn't walk around boasting in her own strength. She boasts in the strength of the one who held her when she was at her lowest. And because of that humility, God can trust her with more, knowing she will not turn his glory into her own. She also becomes unshakable in her convictions. She doesn't bend with every opinion or trend. She doesn't dilute her faith to make others comfortable. She has been tested in the secret place, and she knows what she believes. She doesn't need a crowd to validate her. Even if she stands alone, she stands firm because she has already stood alone with God and survived. Her life starts to attract others, not because she chases influence, but because authenticity always draws people. Broken people find hope in her. Tired people find rest in her. Searching people find direction in her. She doesn't have to advertise her transformation. It radiates from her. The way she carries herself, The peace in her spirit, the depth in her words, it all testifies of a God who specializes in making beauty from ashes. And she never forgets where she came from. She never forgets the nights of weeping, the moments of doubt, the seasons of loss. They stay with her, not as chains, but as reminders. Reminders of what God has done, reminders of how far He has brought her, reminders that if He did it before, He can do it again. Her memory becomes her anchor, keeping her grounded when success tries to make her forget. She becomes a woman who sees possibility where others see impossibility. Because she has witnessed God open doors no one thought would open, she believes for the impossible. Because she has seen Him provide when she had nothing, she trusts His provision. Because she has watched Him turn her mourning into joy, she knows He can do the same for others. Her faith is contagious, and it ignites faith in those around her. This is why the breaking was never wasted. Every valley taught her something. Every wilderness season shaped her. Every loss carved out space in her heart for more of God. She may have hated it while she was in it, but now she understands those were the seasons that built her into the woman she is today. She wouldn't trade them because they gave her what comfort never could: depth, resilience, power, wisdom, and an unshakable relationship with God. So if you find yourself in a season where it feels like everything is falling apart, don't lose heart. If it feels like God is stripping things away, if it feels like the weight is more than you can bear, remember this: He only breaks the ones He intends to use. He only presses where there is oil. He only prunes what He plans to make fruitful. The breaking is not the end of your story. It's the very beginning of a greater one. And when you come through it, you won't just come out stronger, you'll come out surrendered, equipped, and ready for everything He designed you to be. You will see that every tear, every rejection, every loss, every valley had purpose, and you'll stand as proof that God wastes nothing. Thank you for allowing me to share this word with you. My prayer is that no matter what breaking season you may be in, you find the courage to trust the process, the strength to endure the pressing, and the faith to believe that God is shaping you for something greater than you can imagine. May you walk in that truth, and may your story become a testimony of His power and His grace. Thank you.